Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball 2024 Fantasy Baseball Festival of Friendship. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia. That, of course, is the Welsh, and it's you. And for the next 4 hours, that's right, I said it, 4 hours straight through live, we're going to be talking the best of fantasy baseball in 2024 with some of the best folks around to talk about it. One of them's joining us right there hanging out, but not only Steve Gardner, but also Eric Cross, Eno Saris, Frank Stampfel, Chris Towers, Scott Pianowski, and then our good friends later on, Kelly Kirby, the Wonky Penguin, and our good pal Scott Bogman are going to join Welsh and myself for a little mock draft action at 7 p.m. But it's wall-to-wall baseball here, and who better to kick things off than I feel like the Godfather. He's the man from USA Today, senior editor. That's right. But he is still very spry. Don't let that word senior throw you off, folks. I've seen him. He is still jumping all over the place. He does that box jump thing that Welsh always trips over. Steve Gardner, ladies and gentlemen. Steve, it is great to see you. I know all the labor drafts are in the books here, and we're talking fantasy baseball today. And Steve, you're our guest for bold predictions. But so far, as we open things up here, spring training still going. The Gerrit Cole news, I think, is the thing on everybody's mind. So I got to get your take on the Gerrit Cole business before we even get into our other business for the day.
Yeah, it's something that Gerrit Cole had durability as his primary asset. I mean, and then just goes to show you that the injury monster can bite just about anybody. And the news is not good. Looks like at least 1 to 2 months on the shelf, not throwing. Whenever you have a pitcher going to see Dr. Neil Ella Trash, that is bad news generally. So I'm still holding out hope. I'm showing my support for Yankees fans today with this vintage jersey. Speaking of old, and so I think there's still value in having Gerrit Cole on your fantasy team and drafting him if he can possibly come back, and miss only a month or 2 months even. He can still be a definite asset for you. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I have him already on a couple teams.
Welsh,
am
let's
out.
get your take. You're out.
Out.
Okay.
I am out on Gerrit Cole. We had a private chat in the Fantasy Pros side. We were talking about ranks that were coming up. And I started seeing some of our guys, this is where Gerrit Cole's going to go. I think Gerrit Cole's here. And I was shocked. And I said, guys, I'm going to blow your minds because based off of where you guys are ranking him, I am going to plummet Gerrit Cole. There is no chance I'm going to take a risk that is significant. Yes, he's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. That's awesome. But everybody is so critical all offseason long. Oh, Mike Trout, he's injury prone. Oh, Byron Buxton, LOL. All these guys, innings. Taking a player that has an injury right now, that has a subjective date and has questions on will he be okay, is the biggest no-brainer avoid on the planet, even if they are the greatest player ever. I have him outside my top 40 pitchers. I'm not going to do it. Now, I will say, Bogman and I had this long conversation about this a couple hours ago, that I did say, like, in a world where you want to be optimistic about it, I could consider, but I have to have 3 starting pitchers under my belt before I even start thinking about it. So in my mind, what that does is that takes him away from that, like, Cole Reagans, if he's in the 20s, Zach Eflin territory. He can't live in that territory. He's got to come in at SP4 for me to start taking that risk. In like a 10-team league, I'm probably more willing to do it. Things could be optimistic, and hell, maybe he is back by the end of April, but I think there's so much risk out there. And if you even compare like a Shane Bieber, who's had some upticks, it's going to get tons of innings. Is it worth eating 2 months or more of Gerrit Cole in placement of a guy like Shane Bieber, who's going to get all the innings and is looking better? I don't think so. So I'm out on Gerrit Cole.
I got him at 50. That's where I've got him right now, Steve. How about you?
50 in terms of starting pitchers?
Yeah.
I've got him at 41.
There you go.
And so, I think Welsh and I are pretty similar, even though you sounded a lot more pessimistic than I was.
I know.
But I have to say, we had the FSGA industry draft, 14-team industry draft on Monday night. And that was right when the Cole news came out. He fell to the 5th round. I think Clay Link from RotoWire got him. And I remember thinking, that could be a really good bargain. And I think he did have a couple other starting pitchers ahead of him. So that's one of those where maybe that's a good place to take a chance if you've got two other starting pitchers and Cole could be your number 3. So we'll see what more information comes out, but certainly it is a huge risk, and you don't want to take him. You don't want to take him any earlier than that. I don't think.
Certainly not. But this was huge news that obviously broke a few hours ago. So, of course, we're going to talk about it here. And we're going to talk about bold predictions in just a second. Before we do, I want to thank the sponsor of today's show. Welsh and I just did a draft over there. You can check that out on the YouTube channel, because today's sponsor of the Fantasy Fest is Underdog Fantasy, because MLB draft season is here, and the easiest place to play fantasy baseball is at Underdog Fantasy. We've already been active in the best ball format fantasy drafts, where you can draft over 20 rounds, and the best score from the team that you drafted becomes your score for each week of the MLB season. Drafts are constantly filling each and every day, so go to Underdog Fantasy right now or download the app and draft in the Dinger. That's the one Welsh and I just did, for your share of $750,000 in prizes, with the first place being a cool $100,000. It's only $10 to draft at the tournament, and it closes on opening day, Monday, March 28th. So get in there, jump in right now, sign up for Underdog. But when you do, use that promo code FPMLB to get your first deposit match up to $100. That's 10 free Dinger drafts if you're doing the math at home, and I know you are. So use that promo code FPMLB. Join the Underdog today and get drafting in the Dinger for the upcoming MLB season. Gents, let's get bold. Let's go. Fortune favors the bold, and it favors us. Steve Gardner, you're our guest, so let's let you go first. What's a bold prediction you have for the 2024 MLB season?
All right, let's start in the American League. I'm going to say your American League MVP for this season is one Royce Lewis of the Twins. How's that? I mean, that's sort of bold.
Yeah, let's go bold, Steve.
All talking about if, and there's another guy on his team that we could say a lot of the same things about in Byron Buxton. If he can stay healthy, what would it look like if he could play a full season? Well, right now, Royce Lewis has played parts of 2 MLB seasons. In those 2 seasons, he's played about, 70 games, something like that. He's a .307 career hitter with a .913 OPS. So last year, when he finally made his debut, remember all those grand slams that he hit? And yes, RBIs are a context-based type stat, but I like the Twins offense. I like them in the AL Central. And, he's a guy that has the physical pedigree. He was a 1-1 overall draft choice. And he's got the tools, the physical tools to be a superstar. We just haven't seen the full extent of that yet. So with that possibility, he's going to start from day one. Let's see what Royce Lewis can do. I mean, he hits the ball super hard, had 114 max exit velocity each of his 2 years in the major leagues. That's elite. Let's see where it takes us. So I think Royce Lewis can be a dark horse MVP contender, and he's worth going a couple extra dollars for, or jumping up a little bit for in your fantasy drafts. I like him an awful lot this season, even though, he's probably not going to steal a whole lot of bases, but he'll contribute in all the other categories for sure.
A 5-category contributor. Royce Lewis is a guy that I've moved up my draft board. Welsh knows we've done a lot of drafts together here. I've been aggressive on him, and you've seen his ADP rise over the last few weeks as well. I think people are getting more and more, taking that breath as they're entering the season, seeing him in spring training, feeling good about him. I know it's tough when a guy's missed some, serious time. It seems to be the MO of a lot of Twins guys over the years, but he is right now the number 7 third baseman on the board over on FantasyPros. Looking at the early ADP so far, he's looking as the 56th player going off the board. I love this one because I love the Twins. I love that pitching staff. So I'm with you, Gardner. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a great opportunity. I've already bet the Twins to win this division. I love the depth of the rotation. I love what they can offer here. And I see all your questions. We're going to get to some of these questions of yours, so we appreciate them. Keep dropping them in. We're going to get questions to our guests today. Welsh, I want to get to one of your 2024 bold predictions before we get to some questions.
Yeah, speaking of a question, here's a great thing that popped up that's kind of relative to my question. John C. in the chat, like Joe said, we're going to be talking with you guys the whole time, said, would you guys say that Cole's injury boosts Strider considering a separation of position? That's actually a really good question. It does kind of make Strider a tad bit more valuable if you're in that market. I'm not quite in that market, but I am in the market for a third round pitcher because I think there's a lot of upside on those pitchers to jump up. So we're being bold. I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to give you the number one starting pitcher this year. It's not Gerrit Cole, clearly. And I'm a little dicey about not saying it's Strider because I think it is Strider. I will tell you, I literally bet an El Cy Young on Strider last night. But George Kirby is going to be my pick for the number one fantasy pitcher this year. Incredibly low walk rate, 2.5. He actually lowered it last year or the year before, top 5 percentile of the league in walk percentage. He made it better, 2.5%. The Ks came down a tiny bit. The ERA, that's going to be something that I think he's going to maintain even better this year. He's a constant tweaker of his pitches, adding the knuckle curve a little bit more. We've got the split fingers. I'm hoping the sinker is going to drop down a little bit. And I'm hoping some of the manicness that he had last year of like, I can't walk batters is going to manifest itself into that command getting more strikeouts, because that's the key to Kirby here. What sets Strider apart? Strider could have a 3.8 ERA and he could strike out close to 300 and be the number one pitcher in baseball. I think the command element in a great ballpark for pitchers for Kirby, if those Ks can come up into the 9s, he's going to have one of the lowest walk rates, if not the lowest in baseball. I, like Joe, think the Mariners are going to be pretty good this year. We're going to stack wins. And if that ERA does falter a little bit with Strider, George Kirby can be the number one pitcher in fantasy this year. Realistically, if I'm not being so bold, maybe number 2 after Strider, but that's why I'm drafting Kirby all over the place, and that'll be my prediction. Your number one stunner in the AL, George Kirby.
And as you can see here, we're using a lot of our player cards from FantasyPros.com. This is the place where you use all the tools for your draft, your My Playbook to manage your teams all year. In case you've never done this before, you should sync your league. It's free. It's fantastic. You can set all your lineups from the Fantasy Pros My Playbook app. Doesn't matter if you have 2 on ESPN, 3 on CBS, or you just got, 10 different ones on 10 different sites. You can make all of those lineups set in one spot. That alone is worth syncing your league, but also the amazing tools we have, including Draft Wizard. That's another tool we have here. And if you want to dominate all of your fantasy baseball drafts this year, do it with Draft Wizard. This comprehensive suite of tools, it's revolutionized draft preparation. Welsh and I use it all the time. We're using it here on the shows when we do our drafts. You can perfect your strategy with the mock draft simulator. It allows you to perform quick drafts. We do drafts in, a couple minutes. You can run through a baseball draft. You can't do that anywhere with the simulations. Or you can go ahead and go join the mock draft lobby with all the mock draft army people over there. They are out there mocking every single day. Our Discord's out there mocking too, using the Draft Wizard, and the Draft Assistant provides a real-time expert feedback as well. So you get the analyzer, you get the Draft Assistant. Sync your leagues, use Draft Sync, use all the tools here, but certainly get familiar with Draft Wizard before your upcoming drafts this weekend or next, or whenever your draft is. The place to get it, fantasypros.com/draft wizard, and turn that draft day stress into draft day success. That's right, baby. My bold prediction, Michael King is going to be the best starter for the San Diego Padres in 2024. That's where I'm going with this one. And that is a little bold because I'm a big fan of Joe Musgrove. I think now that Yu Darvish's elbow is all cleaned up and ready to go, he could certainly be in that contending discussion as well. But I think special things are in store for Michael King this year. We've talked about him lots on the shows. This is his opportunity to shine, and I think he is going to. I think this is a great opportunity for King, who has been kind of bubbling at the surface for a few years, was great last year in the pen, even better as a starting pitcher, and now he's going to get that opportunity to really show his worth as a starter. Let's go back to you, Steve Gardner. Give us another bold prediction for 2024.
All right, and before I do, I want to comment on what the Welsh was saying about Gerrit Cole's absence. I had that same thought when I was doing that FSGA draft. I had the 7th overall pick, and got the hitter in the first round. But then when it came back around and Corbin Burns was still sitting there, it's like, no Gerrit Cole. Strider was already gone. Corbin Burns also, I think, some of those other pitchers then pop up in terms of value. So I think that's a great question, because we're not really sure. We're just figuring out the ripple effects of not having Gerrit Cole around for the first.
Yeah, Steve, I want to
month or
add to
two.
it just for 1 second, because you're not wrong. Because like, what have we seen all offseason? We've seen like Pablo Lopez like move up, and Tyler Glasdale's moving up, Tariq Skubal. It does kind of change the feel of that, because there was almost so much room for those pitchers of the people that wanted it. Now you just plucked one off, and you might get people a little bit more antsy. I didn't do it necessarily because of it, but if you guys watch, we've got the episode up on the YouTube channel where we did the dinger draft. I took Strider. It's a points-based type of thing, and I was trying to balance out, get one of those top-end pitchers, and boy, do I feel good that I did in that dinger draft. Those Gerrit Cole shares are going to suffer a little bit. But yeah, Corbin Burnes might be another one of those beneficiaries. But all right, Steve, you're up. Bold prediction number 2.
Okay. Bold prediction number 2. Rookie Victor Scott of the St. Louis Cardinals will steal 50 bases this season. How about that? The rationale behind it is opportunity knocks, and it's time for him to take advantage of it. He's been having a very good spring, hitting 367, I believe, with OBP over 450. So he's getting a lot of opportunity, getting a lot of looks. And Tommy Edman was supposed to be the center fielder there in St. Louis this season. He's been dealing with a wrist injury. Who knows when he's going to be back? Dylan Carlson possibly going to take over. Well, they just had a spring training game where Carlson and Victor Scott were both in the lineup. Victor Scott was in center field and Carlson was in left. So, it's at least going through Ollie Marmol's mind, what could happen. And also, Lars Nootbaar just had a stress fracture on a couple of ribs. So the outfield is depleted even further. I think Victor Scott has a chance, and although they're downplaying the possibilities right now of him making the team out of spring training, it's going to be really hard if he's hitting well. We saw him in the Arizona Fall League, and it's all one defensive misplay, but otherwise fantastic out there. The speed is super legit. Stole 95 bases last year. You're going to hear that repeated over and over and over again when he actually does make his major league debut. So he's got speed to burn, and the Cardinals like to run. I think the situation is perfect for him to just explode in his rookie year. And, it's easier to steal bases these days because of the new rules.
Yeah.
I think he can take advantage of that to the fullest.
A cheap plug too, on my Prospect One show. I interviewed Victor Scott. You guys can go back and listen to it. About 10 minutes. Listen to him talk about base stealing. It's phenomenal. He spent some of the offseason at Driveline as well. He hit over double-digit homers, including the AFL. He stole over 100 and I think 10 bases between the AFL and the regular season. He's phenomenal. And a bold prediction would be he does make the team out of camp. So I do like that one. Mine is also stolen bases, Joe.
It is. Before we get to that one, I want to follow up with Steve real quick. Steve, we've had this conversation a lot about players like CJ Abrams and Nico Horner who have rocketed up ADP this year in 2024 based on the stolen bases. But in 2023, we saw a stolen base, revitalization. Do you value some of those guys like Horner or maybe some other players that might have a little bit of artificial ADP up there right now based on those stolen bases alone supporting it? Or are you somebody's like, well, there's more stolen bases to go around now, so I'm less apt to chase some of those guys who are going maybe earlier than you feel comfortable with?
No, I think those guys do provide other things besides stolen bases. I think, Estuary Ruiz is one of those guys that gives you only stolen bases. And I'm not as inclined to go after him unless I have a specific build on my team where I have all the rest of the power. I have good average, and run scored and everything like that. But Horner and CJ Abrams, yeah, I like Horner a little bit better for an all-around game, but he doesn't hit for a whole lot of power.
Right.
Abrams is developing power, so I get what you're saying.
Well, I guess the whole point is
about it.
You have guys like Xander Bogaerts who, going rounds later, who's a 2020 guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically has been something close to that with a batting average, and that's in that 280 range too. Why would you trade? I guess the question is, again, do you feel comfortable enough with this rebounding of stolen bases to the point where, hey, we've got guys like you just mentioned who are going to really pop off the board there, so you don't have to go chasing because there's just more stolen bases to be had.
I think what really maybe answers the question for me is I have 0 shares of Nico Horner and CJ Abrams and Estuary Ruiz this season in all of my drafts. So yeah, I think I'm kind of discounting it and trying to play the spread the wealth approach, get, multiple guys that can steal and do other things. And in some leagues that you have the ability to trade, I think that's where you can kind of back off on steals and then go after them when you need them later on in the season.
Speaking of steals, Welsh, your prediction coming up next is about stolen bases, so let's get to it.
Yeah, mine's actually about probably one of the most polarizing players in fantasy this year. Bold prediction is Elly De La Cruz will lead baseball in stolen bases this year. Esteury Ruiz is out there, Ronald Acuna is out there, but there's something special about Elly in not only, being the fastest man in baseball, but his knack for wanting to steal bases. He said this in the offseason interviews, like he values stealing over home runs. And what I think is really fascinating about him as well, he hit 191 from the post All-Star break on. There was 260 at bats, 191. That sucks. That stinks. He still stole 19 bases. Prior to that, in 126 at bats, when he was hitting high 325, he stole 16 there, and he was 19 before. So every projection system out there has him sitting between 230, 240. If he's a 230 to 250 hitter this year, I almost guarantee he's going to steal 50 bases if he's getting on base like that. Now, if he stinks and he's gone, that's not going to happen. But if he's there and he's getting on base, he's going to aggressively steal bases, probably at the tippy top of baseball. So I think there's going to be a race all season long. Ruiz, Acuna, and Elly. And to be bold, I'm going to say he's going to lead baseball in stolen bases. And you can get that if you go over to Betting Pros. You can check out all of the markets and the bets. If you want to check that out, go download the app. I found it plus 850 on Caesars right now. That is the best odds you can get on any sports book. So go and check that out. Make the bet and check it out on Betting Pros.
My NL Labor team would love that, by the
way. All right, my next one is Lane Thomas, who's a player that I'm just planting the flag on. Last year, he was a player that did videos about being, hey, this is a free player, take a shot on him. There's no reason not to. And all he did was produce last year. And when you're looking at Lane Thomas and, you're just kind of stripping away the name, stripping away the fact that he plays for the Nationals, which I know, that upsets a lot of people, bad teams. There's guys who you can get on bad teams that are going to be helpful potentially in your fantasy baseball world. And when you're looking at a guy like Lane Thomas, again, if you just strip away the name, strip away all that stuff, last year, 100 runs scored, 86 runs driven in, 28 homers, 20 steals, 268. Steve, this is a player who's being drafted as a current consensus ADP of 112. But if you're just looking at the numbers last year, even if you build in a little regression, that's still a player that smells like a third round pick to me. Do you understand why there's so much negativity around a guy like Lane Thomas?
Yeah, I think because he's not flashy, because, the Cardinals essentially gave up on him and the Nationals kind of picked him up off the scrap heap, which, maybe we should look at outfielders that the Cardinals ditch. Because
Randy Rosarena,
the list
we could go
goes on and on and on and on. But yeah, he just doesn't do anything exceptionally exciting. But yet the numbers are there. There was some talk about him, not playing as much against right-handed pitchers. But who are the Nationals? I guess the Nationals do have some young prospects that they're going to bring up that could supplant him. But he's just been so good and goes so under the radar on a team that's not great. I think that's probably why people tend to overlook him.
And Welsh, what do we keep saying? Outfield dries up fast. Outfield dries up fast. This is a guy that's out there. He's available. The ADP is friendly. The productivity is there. The lineup spot is good. I mean, he played on the Nationals last year, folks, and the year before. So it's not like all of a sudden he's breaking new ground. Like all of a sudden things should be more depressed. If anything, there might be maybe some more reinforcements on the way. We're going to have some fun here with Steve. I'm going to give him a little time to think about maybe his favorite future bet. Welsh, we did one a couple weeks ago, but now because Gerrit Cole is obviously Gerrit Cole right now, I have to adjust it. So I adjusted it, and we had our little parlay. You already know that I bet Julio at 10-1 for MVP. Everybody knows that. I bet it last year. I still say if the Angels were smart and traded Ohtani, it would have been right. But I'm doubling down on Julio. But I'm also putting Julio for MVP with Ohtani for MVP with Spencer Strider for Cy Young. Put $50 on that bad boy, you win $31,000. $50 get you $31,000. And tell me, Welsh, that doesn't sound like a crazy scenario, does it?
No, actually, well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm going to tell you here too. I had one that's already dead, by the way. It was Gerrit Cole and Ohtani comboed
Yeah,
together.
we had the same one. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
bad.
And that one's dead. That one's gone. I actually really like your Strider one because I'm playing it down one. I comboed Julio Rodriguez and Shohei Ohtani to respectively win MVPs in both of their leagues. And that pays, it's 11,500 to 1. So, I mean, it's quite a big payout, but I'm down with throwing Strider in there, and it's a big, big payout. So that's going to be my fun parlay of this is Ohtani and Julio. I like the addition of Strider. I would even throw out, I think I mentioned it before, but I think Kirby's like plus 1,300 for AL Cy Young. How about doing Strider and Kirby together for a little Cy Young parlay? So those might be some good future bets. Steve, did we give you enough time to think? Did you add 4 or 5 great players to make $5 turn into 120,000?
Welsh is at 11,000. I'm at 63,000 to 1. But again, I mean, these are big names: Ohtani, Julio, Strider. These are not like absurd possibilities.
Don't bring any 3 to 1 on our money.
No 3 to 1s.
Steve.
Get
no
that
350s.
All right. Well, how about we pair my Royce Lewis for AL MVP thing from earlier, and let's pair that with Yoshinobu Yamamoto winning the NL Cy Young Award. Put those two together. I mean, I like both of those players. I want to get those players in my fantasy drafts. So put those two together and see if you can make me a millionaire. How about that?
I love it. We're going to do everything we can. And Welsh and I have an upcoming betting preview on Betting Pros in just about a couple days coming around the corner. Boy, things are going fast here. And if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it. But luckily we stopped and we talked to Steve Gardner. Go check out his work at USA Today. Go check out all the labor stuff, all the expert drafts. You follow him on the X over at Steve A. Gardner, one of the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, and a first-class human on top of all of that. And from one great human to another, when we come back, CBS's Frank Stanfield is going to join us. And when Frankie comes in, we're going to talk a little Gerrit Cole because we got some questions I see in the chat from you folks out there. We're going to hit Frank up with his take, but we're also going to talk some breakout hitters. So we're going to take a quick break. While we do, don't forget to subscribe to Fantasy Pros MLB. Ring that bell for notifications because guess what? We're giving away free stuff and you're going to want to be a part of it. So subscribe, drop your comments, and we'll be right back right after this.
Don't go.